All right. I also wanted this week to briefly introduce the kind of the final essay. This is not the final exam. This will be the paper for this class, which will be due, as you can see at the top here, not until the very last week of class. So we have a number of weeks to go, but it's always good to think of these things earlier than later. And so this is a paper that you'll submit. I'll have a Dropbox link in the folder for the very last week of class, which is in like the third week of April, I believe. And so here in this folder, you can see this very same sheet linked below, and just some instructions on maybe how to go about getting started. But I wanted to kind of walk through the assignment, and of course, if you have any questions along the way, just let me know. If you want any help kind of tracking down sources, ideas for topics, just let me know. So what I want you to do in this essay for this paper is choose a piece of literature and a work of art. That could be in terms of work of art, painting, sculpture, a piece of music. So yeah, you're choosing two things, a kind of a work of literature, something written, and some kind of static piece or audio piece of art. And so choose those two things from which we have not touched upon in class. In terms of like lectures or films that we've watched, is not something that we've paid a lot of attention to at all. So the idea is you pick something a bit outside of the box of what we've been talking about. And you choose a piece of literature and a work of art from one of these time periods. This is roughly the time periods that we're going to be covering in this class. And each of these titles here corresponds with a chapter in the textbook. And in fact, I think the textbook would probably be the best place to look to get some ideas for what piece of literature you might choose and what work of art you might choose. So I've tried to leave this very broad and open so that you find something that you find interesting, and you can focus on a period of history that you find interesting, and therefore it becomes a worthwhile exercise for you personally. But choose one of these eras as defined by our textbook, and then find a piece of literature, story, play, work of fiction, philosophy, history, whatever you find interesting, and a work of art from that period. And then those two things are going to be what you center your paper around. So here's the step two. These are kind of the nuts and bolts. I want you to, once you've chosen them, construct a 7 to 8 page essay, which analyzes these works according to the following guidelines. Briefly introduce and describe and outline the themes of each piece. In what ways do these works reflect on or challenge the values and cultural movements of their day? So they kind of locate it in context. In what sense does this work of literature and this work of art make sense for the time period out of which they come? In which ways might they be revolutionary? Are there clear influences from previous eras on these works? What later works do they influence? If it applies, what's the view of humanity in these works in relationship to the divine? If it's a religious work, or if it deals with those kinds of topics in terms of humanity's place in the universe, is it optimistic? Is it pessimistic about these things? Why might that be? And then for each thing, so for your work of literature and for your work of art, consult at least one scholarly secondary source for each work and engage the arguments in those about your work of literature and work of art. Do you agree? Why or why not? What is the general scholarly opinion of these works, their importance, their centrality, and their controversy? Again, in as much as these things apply. So when I say a scholarly secondary source, I'm not talking about kind of loose websites. Of course, the best way to find legit secondary sources is to start looking on the web, but make it more of a targeted search. So, for example, in a paper like this, you don't quote, you don't cite Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be great. The best Wikipedia pages are wonderful, but it's not considered a scholarly, peer-reviewed source. Often in a research project that I work on, I will often start with Wikipedia and kind of scroll down to the bottom. And if it's a good Wikipedia page, we'll often have links to the sources that it's using. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'll put up some research resources on the Blackboard side. It'll have its own link off to the side on the left-hand side, and I'll give you links where you can search, keyword search for legitimate secondary sources. One I just highlight here, JSTOR.org, is one that GRCC has a subscription to. So if you're logging in with your ID, with your username and password, you should be able to access this resource for free. And JSTOR is just a clearinghouse of articles and book chapters on all kinds of different topics that fall under the humanities. And you can search it by keyword. And so I would start here at JSTOR once you kind of get to this part of your paper and search, see what you can find. And look at titles, look at what might look relevant. And for most of the things that pop up, there'll be a PDF file that you can simply just download right onto your device, or print up if you want to do that as well. And the great thing about JSTOR is anything that you find in JSTOR is a legitimate scholarly secondary source. So I don't want to see in your bibliography, I don't want to see just kind of loose websites, about the Renaissance or whatever. Because those haven't passed any kind of level of expertise. Anybody can put a website out there with stuff that they're interested in, but that doesn't mean it's academically legit. So do the search for this correctly. Again, if you want help finding sources, this is something I do a lot. I'm pretty good at it. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to help you. In terms of format, the papers must have at least 7 full pages of text, 7 to 8. That doesn't count the title page and bibliography. You can almost think of this as 2 mini papers. Like, do 4 pages on your work of literature, 4 pages on your work of art, and boom, there you have it. Papers must have a separate title page, which includes the title of the paper, your name, the date, the class, and my name. Papers must have a properly formatted bibliography at the end of the essay. All pages, except for the title page, must be numbered. Use a 12-point font, double-spaced, and adhere just to the standard Microsoft Word margins. Keep the font 12-point. Don't squeeze the margins. No excuse for typos and spelling errors in this day and age of very easy spell check. And then for your bibliography and your citations, I don't really care what academic format that you use. MLA is a fairly typical one for humanities research, APA or Chicago. Choose whatever works for you, and just be consistent within whatever format that you choose. All right. So that's about it in a nutshell. Again, let me know if you have questions or if you want some ideas on how to get started. Please, don't wait until the last week to put this together. And I'd love for this to be a conversation for us along the way.